Thanks so much for inviting me. It's a great honor and privilege to speak here. Funny enough, when I was doing this particular research, Creative Commons South Africa was in the process of being launched. I had no idea that that was happening. When I met David Ford and Andrew Lenz, I was this raving lunatic. I could not believe this stuff was happening. Of course, they viewed me with a measure of suspicion. Who is this lunatic? Why does he seem to know so much about us? So thank you for inviting me. My talk today is titled Enclosing the Commons for Dummies. It will become quite apparent. I think it dovetails quite nicely with Rebecca's lecture. A key part of what I'm interested in is how media can be used to serve the ends of social justice, how free speech can be guaranteed. And the two case studies that I want to look at very, very briefly is just an excuse to get into the issue of media ownership. The two case studies I want to look at is a legal battle between a culture-branded company called Laughable Media and South African juries, or SAB Miller, that's not amalgamated with Miller. And essentially, as we'll learn in a moment, Laughable Media jammed one of their brands, and I'll explain how that works. The other thing I want to look at is not something that went to the court, but actually was a nice media moment to look at, was Wiley Publishing, which publishes a whole number of things like Internet for Dummies, Microsoft for Dummies, Dream for Dummies, etc., etc. They only trademarked to this phrase. And Tom Eaton, a journalist, a columnist, former columnist of the Manning Guardian, wrote in his column, which he might have written an article called Ticket for Dummies, in which he rails at the poor performance of South Africa's cricket team at a particular sports city. He gets served cease and desist letter. I'll talk about that in a minute. Let's talk about South African juries and Laughable Media. What I'm going to be suggesting in each scenario is that both legal threats offer examples of attempts at enclosing the information commons. It's not very different from the enclosure of the common fields of England. In both instances, we see elite classes' interests being served, as opposed to those of the plebeians, the commoners, the citizens. So what we're seeing at the moment is the interests of global capital trumping those of the interests of citizens. We see certain values which are integral to the functioning of civil society. We see those values being degraded in all sorts of ways. So we're not just talking about innovation and creativity, we're talking about fundamental values that are important to making democracy work. So I would agree with Rebecca when she says that the shift from Maoism to Murdochism does not guarantee free speech, does not necessarily serve democracy. But let's, for a moment, look at the Laughable Media culture jam. They've jammed quite a number of brands. This is the most famous one because it was taken from, a first round of court action right through to the Supreme Court and ultimately to the Constitutional Court. And essentially what they did is they took a brand, a Carling Black Label beer brand, they took that label and jammed it. The original Carling Black Label beer, something about more reward at the end of the day, etc., etc. It's a brand that was actually associated, was targeted towards black South African working class people. Carling then would be different to other brands which would be geared towards middle class people, white people, etc., etc. Given South Africa's history of apartheid, it's a very interesting marketing game. What Laughable Media did is to unpack that and say, well, let's work with that. Let's displace the Black Label brand, and for those of you who can't read it, their new text there in its place. Black Labor, white guilt. Africa's lusty lively exploitation since 1652. 1652, that's when the Dutch arrived in southern Africa, much to our annoyance. And the text at the bottom reads, no regard given worldwide. Okay, so capital doesn't care about you. Now, this is interesting largely because of something called the TOT system, or die Dorpsstelsel, for those of you who get Dutch and Afrikaans. The TOT system was something that enabled landowners to exploit black labor. You don't pay them with money, you don't assure them a certain amount of civil rights, you pay them with alcohol. Literally, the tot system, tot as in the tot and brandy. So essentially we have this history of the tot system which stretches 300 years, and after apartheid continues on being farms in places like Stellenbosch and Franschhoek in the Western Cape. So the tot system is very much alive. Alcohol fetal syndrome is very much a reality for many, many young children. So when Laughing media both inscribe and subvert the black label, they are calling into the equation the history of this exploitation, which continues to be a reality. It's not a past tense phenomenon. And Justin Nurse, one of the co-founders of Laughing Media, says, you guys open the door to this. The moment you associated the brand with the black working class and flighted ads on TV about black workers, black muscular workers working hard on construction sites at the end of the day and having their beer with their white co-workers as if they are equals. The moment you do that, you open the door for this analysis, hence our culture brand. So this is the defense that they offered, and they lost. They took this all the way to the Supreme Court. They lost. The Supreme Court says, let's interpret the Trademark Act. You're selling a product, you're selling t-shirts. If you were handing these t-shirts out for free, then you'd say, yes, we guarantee a free speech rights. Thank goodness the Constitutional Court appeal has a different outcome. And of course, by this time, Justin Nurse is stone broke. It costs money to defend civil liberties. It costs a lot of money. So essentially, Judge Albie Sachs is one of the Constitutional Court judges who says the Trademark Act actually says you need to be selling to comparable products. How do you confuse a consumer when you're selling a t-shirt as opposed to beer? Trademarks are meant to be protecting consumers in this way. Consumers are supposed to have a guarantee of quality. When they see this brand, they know they're not getting awful water, for example. It's a guarantee of quality. It's not meant to be protecting corporations, actually. And of course, t-shirts are not beer. Okay. And where's your sense of humor in here? Where's your sense of humor? So let's interpret the Trademark Act differently, but also let's invoke Section 16 of the Constitution. Let's remind corporations that our Constitution actually guarantees free speech. So these are the values that take precedence. So eventually we win. And it sets a precedent for culture journalists, for people who are interested in challenging the power of corporations, challenging very, very powerful media, corporate media messages that infiltrate our lives in all sorts of ways. That is the one thing. Let's go back to the Mail and Guardian wider publishing thing. They get served this cease and desist letter. What the Mail and Guardian does, I'll tell you what the Mail and Guardian does. Let me tell you about the Mail and Guardian. The Mail and Guardian is special because it has this history of defying the apartheid government. Before it existed as the Mail, the Daily Mail, and the Guardian. And then at some point they amalgamated strategic business decision. Now, in its previous form as well as its present form, it has been very good at challenging state power, challenging state abuses of power, as well as challenging corporate power. And here is an opportunity for them to sort of show a particular corporate entity their metaphorical middle finger. What they did is to publish an editorial response to the cease and desist letter. And basically, it was titled, again, for those of you who get Dutch and Afrikaans, you'll appreciate it, Voetzak for Dummies, which loosely translated means sod off for dummies. In other words, go fly a kite for dummies. What Fiedel Haffenstein, the editor of the Mail and Guardian, did as well is to publish a number of other unrelated articles where the phrase for dummies would be used. The first of which was by the dummies, for the dummies, a reference to the US Constitution, by the people, for the people. And they had yet to be sued by Wine Publishing. So you see a sort of model victory. Now, both instances tell us about the extent to which corporations have been able to use IP as an instrument that serves them and not citizens. And the ways in which civil liberties get infringed. There's a long history. Now, corporations have this over-inflated sense of importance. They have an over-inflated sense of the ability to scare people. What happened with Napster, for example, people downloading Britney Spears songs, for example, is a good example. But I won't talk about that. Read Stealing Empire if you want to read about that. Here are quick examples of some of the ways in which civil liberties have been infringed. The Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which makes reverse engineering, amongst other things, illegal. The Sonny Bono Copyright Term Extension Act, which makes copyright terms virtually perpetual. And then a number of trade agreements, like GATT and CHIPS, which globalize the United States' very narrow perspective in intellectual property. For those of you who were thinking of why I'm talking about US copyright law, this is why. Because no matter where you are in the world, chances are your country signed GATT, signed CHIPS, so you have to respect a very narrow, selfish set of interests from the states. Now, in the face of this question, we need to ask ourselves, what power do we as citizens, as subjects, have in asserting our identities as capable citizens when global corporations have so much power? When global corporations not just have so much power in interpolating or in addressing youth through a number of media strategies, but also in lobbying their governments to negotiate deals, bilateral deals, multilateral agreements, etc., that serve their interests and not those of citizens around the world, as well as citizens within the United States or the UK or France. Now, the question that I pose here doesn't just bear relevance to issues of David and Goliath proportions as the Laughable Media court battle, dramatized, or the Mail and Guardian mining publishing moment. Many people who follow both cases with interest would have read about it in the Mail and Guardian, the Sunday Times, the Weekly Argus, a number of media titles would have accessed information about this through news titles. Now, who are the people who own these news titles? We need to ask ourselves. Here are a number of holding companies. I need to look at South Africa specifically because South Africa is an interesting scenario, largely because before 1994 we were a largely fascist, racist country. After 1994 we had this amazing liberal constitution, wonderful. Capital crimes, it's just wrong. Hating gay people, it's just wrong. Killing black people randomly, that's not a good idea either. All of these wonderful things that we good on paper, but in many respects, when it comes to media ownership and free speech, these things are really just paper rights. They're not a reality. So, let's look at the Mail and Guardian as an independent newspaper specifically, and the Mail and Guardian online. Now remember why publishing would have accessed information, would have accessed the Cricket for Dummies column through Mail and Guardian online, and they actually pay people to do this. Lawyers, people get paid to trawl internet sites to see who is violating their IP rights. Okay? Now, this is what Feeney Crawler, a journalist, has to say about wire copying. Who are the real heroes when it comes to online news media? Is the question. The answer is wire agencies, the syndicated news people. Click on any news website, and what you find at the bottom of the story, most likely SABA, South African Press Association, Reuters, or AFP. Of course, the bigger players would be not SABA, but Reuters and AFP. How do these sites distinguish themselves from each other? Top news sites in South Africa, Naspers 24.com or 24.com, Independence, IRL.co.za, the Mail and Guardian's Ending.co.za, all their news come from the same source, wire agencies. There's nothing new here. For those of you who have read good work from Noam Chomsky, manufacturing concept. For those of you who have read what your company is, the wealth of networks, nothing new here. The key to expanding whether you're McDonald's or IRL, the key to expanding your business, the key to extending market share is to lower your operational expenditure. You spend less money on salaries, You don't take risks with sending journalists out into the field. You don't have to worry about insurance, hotel stays, etc., etc. You lower your operational expenditure. You outsource certain functions. And this, if you're a journalist, is the equivalent of outsourcing. You rely on syndicated news. The problem with cutting these sorts of corners is that these same kind of news perspectives circulate around the globe. So if you are one of those people who go to news websites every day or buy newspapers religiously, you will find the same news perspective. You will find the same news agenda being circulated over and over. So you know really little about what's happening in the world. So, South Africa, in the face of this, is a very, very small player on the global stage. The US, when it comes to news and media, is still the largest fish in the global pond. But let's just look at media ownership in our context to think about how tricky this is. The biggest fish, in actual fact, is National Press locally, not independent news. Okay? National Press, which translates as national chess, which connotes with national party, which was the ruling regime for 48 years, ruling racist regime. They have managed to secure market share through becoming the mouthpiece of that political party, that ruling political party. That's how they secure market share. And they continue to extend the market share beyond the borders of South Africa, in Africa, as well as in China. And they make a killing. And what NASPAS has done is to gobble up every news title that independent news or Caxton or any of the smaller fish have not been able to gobble up. They have gobbled up practically every community newspaper in the country. So whatever independent newspapers does not own, they will own. Now think about it. Community newspapers have become an oxymoron in our country. They're not owned by the community. They're not run by the community. They're run by corporates who use community newspapers. We run community newspapers as well as securing revenue. Many titles make a killing from advertising revenue, which is why this stuff can circulate for free, and that's how they subsidize the daily newspapers. So the issue of free speech doesn't just kick into the equation when it comes to big court battles. The issue of free speech is very, very important in something very everyday, the news that you access every day. So what is at stake here is the role of the media, the ability of the media to play the role of the fourth estate, the watchdog. Okay. For those of you who haven't done political science, there are three estates that need to be independent of each other. The judiciary, the legislature, and the executive. The executive. And they should not interfere with each other. The theory goes that the media plays the role of the fourth estate, informing the public about what these three arms of government are doing so that they can be informed when they make decisions as citizens who vote. And of course, there's another issue that has been overlooked in this political theory, the role of corporations in that equation. And this is the problem. So there are serious questions about the role, the ability of news media to play the role of watchdog. Why am I telling you this? Largely because journalists, editors, publishers are not actually in conversation with advocates of open content, of open standards. They're not in conversation. They're not here. Why am I seeing more journalists and publishers at this event? We need to have the MD of NASPAS, for example, Koos Becker. We need to have him in this conversation. Of course, he's only interested in having this conversation with me to think about how we can make a killing, how we can corner market share using open standards, using the tools of open content. This is what has happened with Web 2.0 to a certain extent. Who owns YouTube? Who is suing the owner of YouTube? Why is YouTube censoring content? Okay, I have a track that I downloaded in Egypt and I've now made available to my undergraduate media students. It's a track called Bin Laden by Immortal Technique, Mos Def, and Eminem of all people. We would have thought those three people would be together in the same studio recording a song. And it's about 9/11. And the conspiracy theory that in actual fact it was not Al-Qaeda who took the towers down, it was in fact George Bush. The video was available for a year, it scored something like 2.8 million views, and then it gets pulled. And every time people upload the same video again, it gets pulled over and over and over. Why is that? You don't want to upset your shareholders. You want to serve the interests of your shareholders more than you want to serve the interests of citizens. So that is the one part of the equation. This is why the open content battle, that dialogue, needs to be taken to owners of news media. In South Africa, traditional news media are not likely to become obsolete very quickly, largely because the digital divide is large. It's large. It's not about to be overcome very quickly. That is the one part of it, and the other part of it is I'm told, I can't confirm this, but I'm told that the NGO must perhaps have this epiphany. You believe that the NGO might be an option to pursue. How are they going to pursue this? On whose terms are they going to pursue this? So then the challenge for open content advocates is how do we ensure that news media serve citizens and not shareholders? How do we ensure that the tools, the tools of open content don't get hijacked by media monopolists? I don't have an answer, it's just a rhetorical question. That's really all I'm going to say. Thank you for your time.